An arrest warrant for Mr. Jackson has been issued on multiple counts of child molestation. The bail amount on the warrant has been set at $3 million.
The information is disgusting and false. Years ago, I allowed a family to visit and spend some time at Neverland. Neverland is my home. I allowed this family into my home because they told me their son was ill with cancer and needed my help. Through the years, I have helped thousands of children who are ill or in distress. These events have caused a nightmare for my family, my children, and me. I never intend to place myself in so vulnerable a position ever again. I love my community, and I have great faith in our justice system. Please keep an open mind and let me have my day in court. I deserve a fair trial like every other American citizen. I will be acquitted and vindicated when the truth is told. Thank you.
It all started with the release of the Martin Bashir documentary Living with Michael Jackson, which featured the boy Gavin Arvizo. Michael Jackson was introduced to Gavin and his family in the year 2000, after the boy had requested to meet Jackson. He was suffering from cancer at that time. According to Gavin, Jackson called him about 20 other times during his illness. After Gavin's first round of chemotherapy, the Arvizo family visited Neverland for the first time in August 2000. On their very first visit, Gavin and his brother Star begged Jackson to let them sleep in his bedroom. This is the night that is referenced in the 2003 Martin Bashir documentary, that caused massive public uproar, even though both Gavin and Jackson made it clear that while the kids slept on the bed, Jackson slept on the floor.
Gavin came to Michael and said, "Michael, could we sleep in your room tonight?" And Michael looked at me and says, "I don't know, I think you better ask your mother." "Oh, we already asked our mother. She says, sure, no problem." I'm like, no, this is something's odd. This is not right. And then as I was about to go tell Gavin that he cannot sleep in Michael's room, Michael says, "Okay, I have a solution for this. You have to sleep in the room with me." The two children slept on the bed, and Michael and I slept on the floor.
After this incident, Jackson actively avoided them, and maintained distance from the family personally, while helping them to cope up with Gavin's illness as well. He allowed the Arvizos to use the ranch for a blood drive for Gavin, where all his employees donated their blood. Jackson gave the family a white van and a laptop as a gift, which were later sent back to Jackson, in order to have them repaired as they had broken down. But according to the Arvizos, they never saw any of these items again. They didn't have much contact with each other until the Bashir documentary in 2003. Martin Bashir was a British journalist who earlier had interviewed Princess Diana, and then proposed to have Jackson interviewed, in order to present to the public the real Michael Jackson. Jackson gave Bashir something he has never given any journalist: unprecedented access to his private life, allowing Bashir and his film crew to follow him for 8 months.
We began a journey together, across continents, through his past, and rapidly into the disturbing reality of his life today.
During the creation of the documentary, Bashir suggested to Jackson that in the film, he could show to the public how he had helped children with serious illnesses throughout his life. Jackson presented Bashir with 2 choices: David Rothenberg, who was mercilessly put on a blaze by his own father when he was a child in the 1980s, and the other, cancer survivor, Gavin Arvizo. But Bashir went with the 13-year-old Gavin instead, even though Dave was present as well. So Gavin with his siblings Star and Davlin were invited on the sets.
Not sick at all, no more cancer. All gone. All gone.
Jackson trusted that Bashir had no hidden agenda in how he presented his relationship with Gavin, and out of naivety and gullibility, allowed himself to be filmed showing affection to Gavin, after insisting Jackson off camera to hold Gavin's hands, and cleverly planting a conversation to imply that the two had slept together in the bed.
Do you stay in the house? Does Michael let you enjoy the whole premises?
There was one night I stood in there, I asked him if I could stay in his bedroom, and he let me stay in the bedroom, and I was like, "Michael, you can sleep on the bed." And he was like, no, you sleep on the bed, sleep on the bed. We're like, no, you sleep on the bed. And then he finally said, "Okay, if you love me, you sleep on the bed." I was like, oh man. And so I finally slept on the bed. But it was fun that night.
I slept on the floor.
Well, Mr. Jackson didn't say we sleep in the bed together. What Mr. Jackson said was Gavin Arvizo slept on his bed and he slept on the floor.
Jackson felt betrayed by Bashir. He exploited Jackson's poor judgment in public relations, and portrayed the relationship between Jackson and the boy in a false, misleading, and manipulative way.
His face, his denials about plastic surgery, his relationship with Blanket's mother, and of course, I also wanted to return to the Neverland sleepovers. Confronting him wouldn't be easy, but now it had to happen.
Throughout the documentary, he used suggestive and highly manipulative narration, which made it seem as if his intention from the very beginning was to create and feed an innuendo about Jackson's relationship with children. A rebuttal documentary, The Footage You Were Never Meant to See, was released by Jackson's team, showing the footage of Jackson's cameraman capturing the moments that Bashir had intentionally edited out.
About Michael's ranch, Mr. Bashir's on-air comment was, "One of the most disturbing things is the fact that a lot of disadvantaged children go to Neverland. It's a dangerous place for a vulnerable child to be." But what he said behind the scenes was this.
I was here yesterday and I saw it, and it's nothing short of a spiritually kind thing.
This comment about Michael's method of raising children was included on Bashir's special. They are restricted. They are overly protected. I was angry at the way his children were made to suffer. But this was not.
Your relationship with your children is spectacular. And in fact, it almost makes me weep when I see you with them.
Martin Bashir is an interesting example of a man who made his name off of the back of Michael Jackson, lured him in under the pretense that he was going to help Michael Jackson's career by erasing any possibility of allegations of the past, by bringing forward Michael's ability and want and desire to help children and create this international children's holiday that Michael wanted so badly. He promised Michael that that's what this would be about, this international children's holiday, and that he'd make Michael Jackson look like another Princess Diana. That's what he promised.
Martin showed Michael a letter from Princess Diana.
Thanking him?
Thanking him for the show that he did with her, the interview that said, you know, Martin's a great guy, he'll take care of you, it was a great interview, whatever. And then Michael just figured, oh, he's okay. Then if it was, you know, if Di liked him, he was fine. He didn't care. He wasn't trying to be Michael's friend.
Michael didn't learn till after the documentary was made that Martin Bashir had been officially reprimanded in Britain for unfair journalistic practices.
Is there things that you left out of the thing you're like, I'm happy I did?
Absolutely not. It was difficult because, I guess to some extent, because I come from Britain where we don't do sycophantic interviews. We don't really suck up to people very much. We don't do that kind of thing. When I made the documentary, there was a small part of that which contained a controversy concerning his relationship with other young people. But the truth is that he was never convicted of any crime. I never saw any wrongdoing myself. And whilst his lifestyle may have been a bit unorthodox, I don't believe it was criminal.
It is clear that Bashir duped him into believing that he would make a positive documentary that would put forth the truth about his life, but instead depicted Jackson as a dangerous man who is not fit to be around children, and portrayed him in a negative light, totally opposite to what he had promised. Nothing positive made to the cut. When the documentary aired on 3 February 2003, this segment caused a storm of bad publicity for Jackson, and wild speculations about the nature of his relationship with Gavin Arvizo, when in reality, there was not even a relationship between Jackson and Gavin in the first place, as they hardly even met. As a result of the documentary, the media went into a frenzy, and they tried to hunt down the Arvizo family. Jackson's team tried to fight this negative publicity, and decided to hold a press conference in Miami on February 5, 2003, which was eventually called off. Jackson and the Arvizos then returned to Neverland together on 7th of February. Jackson's team then decided to do damage control by releasing a rebuttal video. The Arvizos segment was shot on February 20th, That wasn't included in the rebuttal documentary.
Where were they when I couldn't feed my children, when I had to share a box of cereal? Where were they when my children and I would weep? Where were they when my children and I were lonely? Where were they when I didn't have enough money to pay for my bus fare, to get my son to the doctors? Where were they when I had to walk about 3 hours to get to the doctors for my children? And now, all of a sudden, they're caring and concerned because Michael Jackson is involved, the very same man who cares about me and my 3 kids, to make sure that their past is erased and that all that can count is a future full of happiness, joy, and safety. Where are those people when I needed him, when I needed them? And now, Michael is there for us, there for all 3 of them.
He couldn't even talk. And he gave my little brother so much.
The Arvizos wanted to be compensated because of the damage done by the Bashir documentary. On February 21st and 25th, Janet Arvizo met a civil lawyer, William Dickerman. According to Janet Arvizo, she contacted Dickerman because she wanted him to stop the media from using her children's photos in their publications and on their programs. Dickerman then began writing letters to Jackson's attorney Mark Geragos, demanding the return of furniture, clothes, documents, and various other items which were put in a storage locker, after the Arvizos moved out of their Los Angeles apartment on March 2nd. In his letters, Dickerman also claimed that Jackson's people harassed and followed around the Arvizo family after they had left Neverland. No mention of molestation or false imprisonment. Dickerman later referred them to Larry Feldman, the same civil lawyer, who negotiated the settlement for the Chandlers in the year 1993. Feldman then sends the Arvizos to Dr. Stanley Katz, who is the same psychologist who evaluated Jordan Chandler in 1993. Gavin then alleges that he has been molested by Jackson. The main question that arises here is that, why were the Arvizos sent to Larry Feldman regarding a minute issue of storage locker, harassment, and the media issues? Knowing that the first person Gavin ever made his allegations to was Dr. Katz, and that he had not made any such allegations to either Dickerman, Feldman, or his mother. Yet, they were sent to the same lawyer who had negotiated a $15 million settlement for the Chandlers in 1993. And this lawyer then sends them to the same child abuse psychologist who had also evaluated the 1993 accuser. It must be noted that Tom Sneddon had the California law changed that allowed the Chandlers to push the civil trial ahead of the criminal trial in 1993. The same law that was used by Chandlers to extort money from Jackson. Due to that change, an accuser in a sexual assault case cannot pursue a civil lawsuit right away, and the new law restricts a civil trial from preceding a criminal trial in a related matter. It is for this reason that the Arvizos could not use the same strategy as what the Chandlers did in 1993. Even though they went to civil lawyers, they had no choice but to begin a criminal trial first. And if they had won the criminal case, that could have been used to secure an automatic win for them in a civil court too.
Approximately 70 investigators from the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office served a search warrant at Neverland Ranch in Los Olivos.
Sheriff's Department, you have a search warrant?
They locked everybody out of the house. They had the whole house to themselves to do whatever they wanted. And they totally took advantage. They went into areas they weren't supposed to go into, like my office. They didn't have search warrants for those places, and they totally took advantage. My room is a complete wreck. My workers told me, they said, Michael, don't go in your room. They were crying on the phone, my employees. They said, if you saw your room, you would cry. I have stairs that go up to my bed. And they said, you can't even get up the stairs. The room is totally trashed. And they had 80 policemen in this room, 80 policemen in one bedroom. That's really overdoing it. And they took knives and cut open my mattresses with knives. Just cut everything open. They manhandled me very roughly. My shoulder is dislocated literally. It's hurting me very badly. I'm in pain all the time. See this arm? This is as far as I can reach it. Same with this side over here.
Because of what happened at the police station?
Yeah, at the police station. And what they did to me, if you saw what they did to my arms, it was very bad what they did. It was very swollen, I want to say, with the handcuffs, the way they tied them too tight behind my back.
Behind your back?
Yeah, and they put it in a certain position knowing that it's going to hurt and affect my back. Now I can't move. It keeps me from sleeping at night. I can't sleep at night. One time I asked to use the restroom, and they said, sure, it's right around the corner there. Once I went in the restroom, they locked me in there for like 45 minutes. There was doo-doo feces thrown all over the walls, the floor, the ceiling, and it stunk so bad. Then one of the policemen came by the window and he made a sarcastic remark. He said, does it smell good enough for you in there? How do you like the smell? Is it good? And I just simply said, it's all right. It's okay. So I just sat there and waited.
For 45 minutes?
Yeah, for 45 minutes, about 45 minutes. And then one cop would come by and say, oh, you'll be out in a second. You'll be out in a second. Then there would be another 10 minutes added on, then another 15 minutes added on. They did this on purpose.
The law enforcement and prosecution went to great depths, but couldn't find anything. In turn, during the trial, several evidences had come into light that proved this case was nothing but a total debacle. The Arvizos initially claimed that Jackson had started molesting Gavin as soon as they had returned from Miami with Jackson, on February 7, 2003. This claim, however, later changed to Jackson started molesting Gavin after February 20, when the prosecution found the rebuttal video footage, where the Arvizos are seen praising Jackson, which was shot early morning of February 20. As a result, the Arvizos changed their initial timeline of the allegations from February 7 to February 20th.
They began to claim that the young man had been molested right after the Bashir documentary, and then to their horror, we came up with a videotape where the young man and his brothers and mother all praised Michael for being the nicest person they'd ever met. And at that point, the prosecution changed its theory and tried to say the molestation began after that videotape was put together. So it was kind of a two-step process, all of which was completely absurd.
Martin Bashir's documentary resulted in public outrage in the media about Jackson's relationship with children, and a high media interest and tabloids were trying to hunt down the Arvizo family. Jackson's PR and legal team were simultaneously working overtime on damage control. Even investigations were held by DCFS and Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department to investigate Jackson and Gavin Arvizo. So to believe the Arvizos' story, you have to believe that all while this was happening, and while these investigations were ongoing, and the whole world was in uproar, Jackson suddenly started molesting Gavin Arvizo, even though for 3 years he had not touched him, and not even trusted him and his family. This is exactly the story that the Arvizo family ended up with, after they were forced to change their initial timeline, because of the discovery of the so-called rebuttal tape. They even brought a conspiracy charge against Jackson, claiming that between February 1 and March 31, 2003, Jackson conspired with his co-conspirators to abduct Gavin Arvizo, and to falsely imprison the Arvizo family, so they could be forced to participate in the rebuttal video. But as per the video, the Arvizo family did not seem to be under any duress at all, while they were shooting the rebuttal video.
Wait, you know how these Bashir, you know how Bashir zoomed in on him holding hands? Do that the same thing.
Because
because that's what a mother does with a son, or a father does with a son, and they try to make it out to be something wrong and dirty. Put your back straight.
The hand holding thing.
Okay.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, we're on camera?
Yeah.
Oh.
We are?
Yeah, I was just rolling.
Oh God! This is the outtakes of the outtakes.
However, receipts and testimonies showed that during their alleged captivity, the Arvizos went shopping several times, stayed for days with her boyfriend who was an Army officer, talked to Child Protective Services regarding the Bashir documentary, visited the lawyer William Dickerman to stop the media from using the Arvizo children's photos, talked to doctors, stayed at a hotel, and appeared in a court with another lawyer regarding the child support debate. Yet, they never reported to authorities, their lawyers, the doctors, or to anyone, that they were allegedly being kidnapped and held against their will. They claimed they were held captive against their will, and weren't allowed to reckon the time of the day, when there were several clocks at Neverland, including this huge clock. They made an outrageous and exhilarating claim, that Jackson and his people attempted to flee them to Brazil, in a hot air balloon. Well, Jackson's people did keep an eye on the Arvizo family, but there was no imprisonment or kidnapping. But that was only because they were suspicious of the Arvizos, and how they may use the media uproar resulting from the Bashir documentary, for their own benefit. The media at this point tried to contact the Arvizos, and Michael Jackson already had experience with the practices of the tabloid media, and what effect the temptation of tabloid money can have on people.
We've got the tape of what happened right before that interview with Department of Child and Family Services. When the caseworkers arrive, the children appear to be watching a home video of Jackson and the alleged victim. Jackson's heard singing.
This is something personal.
And here's what I didn't hear in it, Dan. She talked about that specific threat. We know where your parents live. We listened to the tape that you listened to and put on the air, and in that break, when Asaf, the Jackson investigator, talks to her, there is no threat. In fact, the words threat, the words killers are not used there or anywhere else in anything, and in the tape exhibits that have been played in court so far.
Dan, everything about this woman says Michael is innocent. Remember, Bashir followed Michael and these kids around and never found anything that was sexual abuse. Then she talks on this tape that we've seen and to protective services, nothing. Only after the fact, at this trial, when she can make a lot of money, if Michael is convicted, she spins everything that helped Michael with a negative spin.
They were at all times during that February 7th to March 10th period of time, whenever Michael was there was always a third party around, always.
What about the allegation that some kind of intoxicating agent, said to be wine, was given to this child to make him more pliable?
Ludicrous. I mean, it's ludicrous on its face. There are in excess of 100 employees at any one time at that ranch. There is full-time security at that ranch. There are people who are there at all times, day and night, 24/7, who are specifically instructed to make sure that people don't do that. The kids are nowhere near alcohol or liquor.
During the trial, the prosecution made several baseless claims, with witnesses not only contradicting their own past testimonies, but also admitting to have lied under oath. Gavin Arvizo on the stand claimed it was Jackson who told him that men have to masturbate, otherwise they may rape women. Turned out that in his interview in 2003, Gavin said that his grandmother told him that. But on the stand, he completely differed from it. Initially, in Star Arvizo's interview with Dr. Stanley Katz, Star claimed that on the two occasions, when he allegedly witnessed Jackson inappropriately touching his brother, Jackson's hand was on top of Gavin's clothes. But later, on the stand, he claimed that Jackson's hand was inside Gavin's pants on both occasions. In the interview, Star also claimed that on the second occasion, he witnessed Jackson molesting his brother while having his penis out of his underwear. Later, this claim disappeared from their allegations, and on the stand, Star never claimed to have witnessed such a thing. On the stand, he claimed he did not see any alcohol in the room, while these alleged acts of molestations were taking place. But later, he was reminded that earlier he told the grand jury that he saw vodka. So now he suddenly remembers that he did see. Initially, Star also claimed to Dr. Katz in 2003 that he had witnessed Jackson rub his private parts against Gavin's butt, and touch Gavin's butt. Not only did this claim disappear from their allegations, but at the trial in 2005, when Jackson's lawyer Thomas Mazzaro confronted him with what he initially claimed to Dr. Katz, Star flat out denied ever saying such a thing. Initially, in two interviews, Star claimed that he too had been inappropriately touched by Jackson. Later, this claim completely disappeared from the trial. Not only Star's own testimonies were contradictory, but there is another piece of evidence that makes his whole story questionable. There was much talk in the media about the alarm system in Jackson's bedroom. Neverland was a place where dozens, or even hundreds of people stayed, and walked around at Neverland. Be it guests, relatives, friends, fans, or staff. There have been several instances, when fans had managed to have sneaked into his ranch, and even to his bedroom, and camouflaged themselves for weeks. There's no doubt as to why an international celebrity wouldn't want to get a warning when someone enters his private quarters. The prosecution's and the tabloid media's theory about it was that Jackson installed it to get warned if anyone entered his bedroom while he was molesting children. But this is just a never-proven prosecution hypothesis, not a fact. Ironically, this alarm system that the tabloid media often tries to use to incriminate Jackson blew another hole into Star Arvizo's story. How come that Star Arvizo was able to walk into Jackson's bedroom and observe the molestation 2 times, without Jackson hearing the alarm and noticing him?
So what, Michael Jackson didn't hear this alarm go off and just continued to molest this sleeping boy while someone else walks in?
When Star was asked about it, he claimed that it was not audible upstairs, because the door at the bottom of the stairway was closed. Jackson's defense team did an alarm test, and the video of it was presented at Jackson's trial as evidence that proved that the sound of the alarm was loud and clearly audible in the upstairs portion of Jackson's bedroom, where the alleged molestation happened.
The audio recorded the sound of the alarm warning that someone was coming up the steps, to show that Michael would have been aware of anybody coming into his bedroom.
Initially, the Arvizo kids claimed that Jackson had given the kids sleeping pills. However, later this claim completely disappeared from their allegations. During cross-examination, Jackson's lawyer Tom Mazzaro showed Star Arvizo a copy of Barely Legal, and repeatedly asked if it was this specific edition that Jackson had showed him and his brother. The boy insisted that it was, only for Mazzaro to reveal that it was published in August 2003, 5 months after the Arvizo family had left Neverland.
Remember, he is the witness. He is the one who saw Michael Jackson allegedly molesting his brother, and yet on different occasions he described what he saw quite differently, and Tom Mazzaro pointed that out.
There were several other claims that were made, such as Jackson deliberately showing himself naked, or him showing pornography on internet, or seeing Jackson simulating sex with a mannequin. However, these claims were either contradicted by their own testimonies, destroyed under cross-examination, or weren't included in the trial. During the trial, it was also revealed that the Arvizo kids weren't as naive and innocent as the prosecution tried to portray them.
After repeated stays in Neverland even while Michael was out of town, they began to exhibit an attitude of entitlement with Michael's staff and resources. Witnesses at the trial reported that they thought the family started conspiring to take advantage of Michael and his generosity. They had access to all parts of the property and freely used the amusement park, the zoo, the arcade, and movie theater. The kids figured out the Neverland security codes and were admonished by the staff for breaking into Michael's wine cellar and consuming alcohol. Eventually, the Arvizos got too out of control, and Michael started to distance himself from them. By this point, they were charging thousands of dollars of luxuries on Michael's account.
Several people, including Neverland employees and Jackson's relatives and friends, revealed their unruly behavior during their stay at Neverland. Carol Lemire, Michael's former hairstylist, knew the Arvizos independently for years before they even met Jackson. She stated that the Arvizo kids had serious behavioral problems. She recalled an occasion in a restaurant, when Star tried to pick up the waitress by offering her a $5 tip. Then Star demanded the waitress' phone number, and became vocally angered and irate when she refused, demanding his money back. She told the investigators that Devlin even told her stories about their mother physically abusing them, forcing them to shoplift, and making them tell lies, and about their father David sexually molesting Devlin. Devlin even told Lemire that Jackson was going to buy her family a house. After questioning her, Devlin implied that her mother Janet was going to blackmail Jackson, forcing him to buy them a house. Shortly after that, Lemire called Devi Tavashi and told her to get Michael away from the Arvizo kids. She described the children as trained con artists. Jackson's young cousin Rijo testified at the 2005 trial that on one occasion, he saw the Arvizo boys watching an adult program on TV with nude women, and started to masturbate under the sheets. They invited Rijo to join them, but he refused, and ran away. He testified that he witnessed them stealing money and other items from the office of the house manager, and from a drawer, where a chef kept his belongings, where they found out the various combinations to keep padlocks on doors throughout the ranch, including the wine cellar. He saw the Arvizo boys frequently go to the wine cellar, and to Jackson's room several times, while the singer was not present. Rijo's elder sister Simone also testified that while she was in the pool one time, Gavin and Star repeatedly urged her to take off her bathing suit top, and called her a pussy and a bitch, because she wouldn't take off her top. She even witnessed them stealing a laminated $1,000 bill from Jackson's desk in his office. Julio Avila, a Neverland employee, stated that he found the Arvizo boys to be troublemakers, and behaved as if they owned the place. He stated that he found the Arvizo boys to be troublemakers, and behaved as if they owned the place. He stated that both Gavin and Star spat at him and other employees while on the rides. They would also drop their shoes from the top of the Ferris wheel. Once, they even dangerously started a ride by themselves. He said that he observed Star Arvizo writing the words, "You suck dick," on a wall, in one of the control rooms in the park, and he also witnessed Star bringing pornographic magazines to the park, and hid them in various places, including the control box of the park stereo, and on the rides. When being asked, Star told him, he brought them from home. Maria Gomez testified at the trial that she saw adult magazines in Star Arvizo's backpack while she was once cleaning the guest unit where they stayed. Kiki Fournier, an ex-employee, testified as a prosecution witness that Star Arvizo once pulled a knife on her in the kitchen. In an interview with the sheriff's investigators, Louis Palanker stated that she wrote a check of $20,000 to the Arvizos to renovate a sterile room, but later learned that the family had paid the contractor only $800 for the renovation. She stated that the Arvizo family was out of balance, and that she felt that the kids collaborated in what their mother was saying. She stated that this family can be as wacky as they want to be. And she knows that Janet is unbalanced and totally bipolar, and that she needs to see a psychologist. She also felt that the children were coached to ask her for a laptop computer as a gift. She also said that these people were teaching their kids to lie. But Palanker's tone between her police interview in January and testimony in March 2005 changed after she got into a romantic relationship with one of the case's prosecutors, Ron Zonin, who she even got married to.
Now, Jay Leno was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department and secretly recorded by the sheriffs. He didn't know he was being recorded. And he told them words to the effect that this family had contacted him, that the 13-year-old accuser had tried repeatedly to get through to him, and that finally he had a conversation with him. He said that the 13-year-old sounded, overly rehearsed, sounded scripted. There seemed to be a woman in the background, directing what he said, and he got a bad feeling about what this young man was saying to him. And he thought they wanted money, although they didn't actually ask for it. And after that conversation, he told the staff not to let them put any calls through to him again. Now, George Lopez was called by the prosecution to talk about their efforts to get money from him, even going so far as to accuse him of stealing money from the child's wallet.
Another prosecution witness, Cynthia Ann Bell, a flight attendant, testified that Jackson usually drank wine on the plane because he was a very nervous flyer. He usually drank alcohol from a plastic thermal-like mug-looking thing, but on that flight there was not any available, and it was Bell's idea to put the wine in a soda can instead, since he did not want his children to see him drink alcohol. She testified that she never saw Jackson give alcohol to the Arvizo kids, something that the prosecution claimed. She had nothing but nice things to say about Jackson, and had the polar opposite impression of the Arvizo children, especially Gavin. She described Gavin as very rude, and further stated, "The individual was unusually rude, discourteous. I remember him talking about, 'I got this watch from Michael, and it's really expensive,' just loud, obnoxious, like 'serve me my food, this isn't warm, this isn't the way it's supposed to be,' and he was just unintelligent." It was embarrassing to have him on board actually. It now makes sense as to why Jackson wanted to distance himself from these spoiled kids. During the investigation, it was revealed that the Arvizo family was already involved in several fraudulent cases, where they tried to make money by unfair means. In 1998, the Arvizo family was involved in an incident at the JCPenney department store, when 8-year-old Gavin was caught stealing 2 school uniforms from the store. There was a scuffle between Janet and the guards, and both Janet and her husband David were arrested and taken to jail, where they were charged with burglary, assault and battery, and petty theft. But the charges were eventually dropped by the store. A year later in 1999, the Arvizos filed a civil lawsuit against JCPenney for battery, false imprisonment, and infliction of emotional distress. Then a year later, they added sexual assault allegations in their complaint, claiming that a security guard fondled Janet's breasts, squeezed her nipples 25 times, punched her with a closed fist, molested her in her vaginal area, and called her racial slurs. Eventually, the case was settled in 2001, with JCPenney paying the family $152,500.
She was arrested, brought to the police station. We obtained the booking information where she said she didn't have any need for medical attention, didn't have any injuries. We also obtained the booking photos where you didn't see a bruise on her body or a hair out of place. Subsequently, her lawyer filed a lawsuit against JCPenney and with photographs showing bruises all over her body.
Later, Janet and her kids admitted under oath that her ex-husband David regularly beat her and their children, and that they had lied earlier in the JCPenney deposition.
You know, the problem that she has in this JCPenney case is that the allegations in some ways are so similar to the allegations here. Sure, it's her son making them here, but again, it's sexual abuse, it's false imprisonment, and it's about, as the defense would say, money.
Exactly, Dan. And on top of that, she's involved her child in both of these cases.
She had sued her.
Moreover, at the Jacksons' trial, Elizabeth Mary Holzer, who worked for the firm that represented the Arvizos, testified that Janet Arvizo had admitted to her that she had been lying about the JCPenney case. She further stated that Janet threatened her to have the Mexican mafia injure her child if she ever revealed this to anyone. Not only did the mother lie in the JCPenney case, but she also committed welfare fraud.
It's now an NBC News exclusive from the Michael Jackson trial. Documents that show how the accuser's mother may have committed perjury and fraud over a period of nearly 2 years.
Even the prosecutor said she may have committed perjury in certain of her applications. Documents that show the mother claimed she had virtually no assets after she'd received a 6-figure court settlement and tens of thousands in donations for her cancer patient son. On November 5, 2001, the mother's lawyer distributed over $100,000 from JCPenney's and Tower Records. At least $32,000 of that settlement money was deposited in one bank account, with separate interest-bearing trusts set up for each of her sons. Yet 10 days after the payout, she said in her welfare applications, under penalty of perjury, that she and her children had no money from any source, no court settlements, no bank accounts, no interest income. She also said they had no health insurance, though her ex-husband's policy was and remains in force. In monthly eligibility reports and in a reapplication in October of 2002, the accuser's mother reaffirmed those answers and collected benefits until March 2003.
Her son was ill with cancer, and they were losing their house, and they were losing their car because of the medical expenses.
Keenan felt sorry for the sick boy and eventually agreed to run a story. A few weeks later, the mother called again.
She said, "You know what, we didn't make enough money from the first story. Will you run another story?"
The mother's phone call prompted the reporter to carry out more research on the family. She was stunned and shaken to learn that the family was insured and their medical expenses had been covered all along.
It gives me goosebumps. It does. It does. That a mother would use her son to use their son's illness for their own gain.
They mentioned about 10 seconds of that, and they mentioned it once, and it wasn't like, oh, reminding you, just remember that, you know, the witnesses and the ones obviously, you know, suing Michael Jackson for these legal charges and, you know, had these criminal things against him were trying to, you know, obviously they were scam artists beforehand. Right. They tried to pull something, but that history was not brought up. You
well,
only
because
heard
it's not important to the public.
The Arvizo family also had a history of grifting, cunning, and manipulative behavior. Chris Tucker, a comedian and Michael's dear friend, testified, sharing his encounters with the Arvizos, long before Jackson even came into the picture. He told that the father, David Arvizo, told him that they were going to have a benefit for his son, who was dying of cancer. A couple of days later, Gavin called Tucker and told him that they had not raised any money at the fundraiser, and that they needed money for his medical bills. Tucker then wired money to Gavin's foundation. However, it was revealed during the trial that they did in fact raise money, but Gavin flat out denied of asking any money from Tucker. Tucker testified that he took Gavin and his family to the Knott's Berry Farm theme park, shopping, and sports games. They visited him on the sets of his movie Rush Hour 2, and were expected to stay for a couple of days, but instead stayed for a week or two, all at Tucker's expense. The kids were very undisciplined, and were disturbing the work on the set of the movie so much, that Tucker's people asked him to keep them away. Tucker described Gavin as sophisticated, smart, and cunning, and his brother Star as definitely cunning, and even said that he felt that he almost needed to check Star's pockets before they left his home, whenever they visited him.
He used possessed to describe the mother of the accuser. Not just that she was mentally unstable in his words, but that she was possessed, chaotic. He talked about his girlfriend, former girlfriend, getting tangled up with this family. He talked about the accuser himself being cunning, smart and cunning. Quoted him as saying, the boy coming up to him saying, "Listen, I want that, let me have that. I'm not feeling good." Taking advantage of his illness again and again, until, as Chris Tucker testified, he began to get suspicious, nervous, scared. His own self-descriptions came to believe that they were out for money. In fact, he had sent them a lot of money, wired the money, was prepared to give them a car, and hauled all that back, eased out of it, he said, asked his then-girlfriend to ease out of it, back away from this family, told Michael Jackson to do the same thing.
Referring to the accuser in this case, this is not the mother. He was really smart, and he was cunning. But at the time, I always overlooked it, and his brother was definitely cunning. Remember? He was always saying stuff like, "Chris, let me have this, let me have that. Come on, I'm not feeling too good." Of course, referring to his cancer. And Tucker talked about the fact that he gave the family some money, and that they just kept asking for more and more.
They were targeting celebrities, in my opinion, and they ended up with the most gentle, kind-hearted celebrity of all, Michael Jackson. Michael was very naive, very kind, very gentle, wanted to see this child heal his cancer, and almost made it a cause that he would do what he could to help he and his family, but they started leaning on him more and more and more, and he got a very uncomfortable feeling about them. And of course, Chris Tucker warned him. He said, "Something's wrong, be careful, Michael."
She taught them what to say, and they said it. They had typed out notes that they would come home every day from school, and they would read from them. These kids were taught to disarm people. There was a consistent statement made by almost every witness that had dealings with the family, that these kids would come up and greet them with a hug. These kids would write cards, "We love you, you're like a big sister to us, can we come stay at your house?" This was a pattern that they had set.
I will tell you, Dan, that this family, every conversation I had with them, every meeting I had with them, any interaction with them centered around either money, fame, celebrity, and or possessions. The family apparently was aware of prior allegations that had been made against Michael in the past, and had hinted that there was really nothing keeping them from doing something similar, unless, my understanding was they were very concerned and upset that they were not compensated for the Bashir documentary which had aired. When they started making threats, Michael realized this was not a family he needed around him. And I think he would have done anything he could at that time to distance himself from them, or to distance them from him. They were trying to do whatever they could to take care of what they saw as a potential problem, a loose cannon, someone who was very well knowledgeable of the '93 event or allegations, and had threatened to do something similar. It was always characterized as nothing more than an attempt to extort money.
In the entire time while he was sick and undergoing chemotherapy, I actually never even met the mom. I never met the mom for a year. Yeah, I thought it was weird. There were times when we would we would spend the night with the accuser in the hospital while he was undergoing chemotherapy, and the mother was never there. These kids were very comfortable being at Neverland. These kids knew all the security passwords to every room you could imagine, even the rooms that were, blocked off to anyone else that were personal to Michael. The last time that I actually saw them, I left them at Neverland. But the night that I spent the night, they actually asked to sleep in Michael's room. However, Michael was not there, but they insisted and they really wanted to. I thought to myself, what child would want to go into the room where these awful things were happening to them? According to the timeline, it was after these things had already been happening to him. And he tried to do so much for them. And they told me that Michael was the one who helped cure this child of cancer. Just his love and his support. Well, the same people who were able to say that they were capable of then turning their backs on him and making these just awful allegations for the sake of money or whatever it was just, I just felt really betrayed.
It was the Arvizos right from the very beginning who chased Jackson, and not the other way round, as Janet Arvizo claimed. During the investigation, cards and letters written by the Arvizo family to Jackson were discovered, in which they begged for Jackson's attention because he was not answering their phone calls. Gavin, on the stand, admitted that Jackson stopped calling him. In fact, on cross-examination, Gavin complained about Jackson avoiding him, and said that no other celebrity he befriended ever did that to him. He also complained on the stand that Jackson changed his phone numbers and became unavailable to them. It was clear that Jackson was clearly avoiding them, merely weeks after they met. Gavin claimed that he felt abandoned when Michael had cut off the friendship. Therefore, not to lose contact with Jackson, the Arvizo family started to bombard him with nice letters and cards.
She wanted to live at Neverland for the rest of her life. Michael had been so kind to this woman and her son who had overcome cancer that he gave them a suite on the grounds, a little cottage that was normally occupied by Elizabeth Taylor, his friend. There were swans floating in the thing outside. There were flowers everywhere. There was music playing. It was idyllic. This is a woman who had been living in the ghetto in Los Angeles. She thought she was going to stay there forever. And so when it became evident that she wasn't, and that Michael was going to give them eviction papers, she went to the DA and claimed that he had molested her child.
But money is the root of all evil, as you know. The love of money is the root of all evil. And this is a sweet child, and to see him turn like this isn't him. This is not him.
So you don't think this comes from him, this comes from his parents?
No, this is not him, no. I know his heart.
So to recap everything, Gavin Arvizo, a child ailing with cancer, met Jackson in 2000. On their very first visit, Gavin and Star requested to sleep in Jackson's bedroom. This makes Jackson suspicious, and he makes arrangement to sleep on the floor with Frank Cascio. This incident made Jackson maintain distance from the Arvizos merely after weeks, but Jackson still did things to help them. There was almost no contact between them, until the shoot of the Martin Bashir documentary about 2 years later in 2002. In these 2 years, Arvizos visited Neverland at least 7 to 10 times, but most of the times Jackson wasn't there, and even if he was there, he actively avoided them. Martin Bashir's documentary releases, and sparks an outrage. Janet Arvizo hires a civil lawyer, in order to get compensated for the damaged reputation, and later, that turns into a child molestation allegation, with countless loopholes.